So in this quantum energy frequency transmission, and what I mean by that, by the way, is when I set the intention that I'm going to share something with you, the wisdom of what I've learned, at least as far as certain dynamics, mechanics, or whatever, right? Because my perception could still be off, right? I'm not perfect. Is sort of transmitted, at least the wisdom that was shared with me to come to that conclusion of whatever it is that I talk about, is sort of infused with an energetic vibration of the wisdom, like I said, that led me to that. Okay, so that's what happens when I say that. But I wanted to start talking about kundalini experiences. I haven't spent a lot of time looking online at various resources because it is my belief that there isn't anybody out there who can tell you what that experience is going to be like for you. And this is why I believe that. When I experienced my kundalini awakening, what happened is I felt this extreme, intense, almost like a searing, burning sensation. More searing, I think, is the right word. It felt more like hot electricity than hot liquid electricity. Anyway, it did start at the very base of my spine, and I did feel it sort of unwind or kind of go around and around. And then I did feel it start to come up my spine. But what happened is it hit my root chakra, and it was like a fire hydrant opened in the front, and it was like this. You kind of felt this gush, but it was just energy, like go out of you like forward. And then it came up and it hit the next chakra, and it like blew that open. And then and it kept blowing, it kept blowing, it kept blowing. The thing is when the kundalini energy runs, my perception of what that is, it's an unlocking of all that is, all that wisdom, all that data becomes available, and it's overwhelming. You suddenly get very clear on a lot of things, and now all of a sudden whatever's left is front and center. Whatever chakras are not completely clear, they're wide open now. They've been opened. They've been released. They've been hit with this energy that says, hi, wake up. And you wake up to all sorts of things. How that looks to you is very, very unique. What experiences you have from it, what gifts you unlock as a result of it too, is very, very unique. So what happens when it does release and you're not prepared, and by prepared, I don't think anybody can really be prepared, but if you're not comfortable enough with yourself in your inner work, your inner observation of what makes you tick, of what makes you who you are through your distortions and everything, if you're not in a space where you're acknowledging that you have faults and acknowledging that there are things to look at, then when those things come up, the distortion around them gets magnified. And it keeps coming and it keeps coming. Those situations keep presenting and they keep presenting until you hit them head on and say, okay, I've got to deal with this or I'm going to go drive myself crazy. That could be a spiritual experience. It could be a 3D or 4D experience. Whatever it is requiring, right? It's been set off. That kundalini is out. That energy is cycling through your body. You are transmuting. You are receiving an energy that your body is not used to. And that energy has wisdom. It has power. It has purity. And then the electromagnetics and the DNA triggers and all the light body coming in, all those other things that start to happen. And the system can get really overwhelmed if conceptually you do not keep up with the transformation that's occurring within you. Your perceptions are going to start changing rapidly. But if you're not observing them as they go, then you're going to get off balance. It can be a really beautiful thing, but it can also be a really, 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 really interesting and potentially frightening and traumatic thing if you're not in the right space to observe what it is that you're going through. I'll give you a really, really cool example of something that happened to me one night. First off, when my kundalini went, I think there were little bits and pieces until the actual main part went. But when that happened, there was a few weeks where I couldn't even really walk. Like I was both oscillating and like shimmying and vibrating and doing all these things because there was this energetic overwhelmment of my entire sphere of particles, right? All that is me was being transformed. That was interesting. You know, when you're, I'm walking and I have to hold on to something and I can't focus and I'm, everything is really, 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 really interesting because there's just this wave of all this stuff that's happening, right? Really tired, slept a lot. And then I go through periods where I wouldn't sleep at all. But I wanted to share something that was really, really cool that happened one night. So I got up probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, couldn't sleep, went outside, doing my thing. I also was experiencing, I was sitting, trying to realize I was bending over, spontaneous kriyas. So my body would just start moving and doing all this stuff all on its own because the energy would get backed up. And there was nothing else for it to do. It just had to move. It had to go somewhere. And so that was really interesting. Suddenly I would find myself doing all sorts of fun things to express it and to make way for the new and all that. So one night I get up about 2 o'clock in the morning. Energy's backed up. I'm going outside kind of doing some kriyas. And then I have an inspiration to get my crystal ball. And so I get it and I come outside and I'm sitting there. And I'm holding my crystal ball in my hands. This only happened one time. And where I lived, I was up on a balcony, on a patio, sitting at the top of the steps, looking out over a backyard that was just plants everywhere, flowers. There's like little rock gravel walkways, a little koi pond, and I mean it's a beautiful, beautiful hot tub, beautiful backyard, right? Beautiful scene. And and behind actually it was wooded, so there were just trees. So I had my crystal ball. And all of a sudden, I got really, really shaky. Really shaky. I'm kind of getting shaky now. And when I looked up, like I was looking far off, and I let my eyes relax, I could see spinning all around me this huge vortex of energy. And it was consistent as if I was sort of sitting in it and it had sort of floated in all around me and I didn't notice. I suddenly felt like the air was different. Like I could hear just slightly differently, like some sounds were muffled, like car traffic, and other sounds were enhanced, like the water in the koi pond. And then, all of a sudden, everything unlocked. I could see color and life in everything. Every plant was singing a song or saying something. Every flying gnat, fly, bee, mosquito, whatever, could speak. And I heard it. And I sat there for a couple of hours communing with everything. That was very magical. And then that unlocking of those gifts stayed with me. where I could hear the sound of everything. When a cupboard door slammed or shut, I could hear from the noise of just the sound of the closing of the cupboard a word or a phrase or something. Well, this was during the middle of my kundalini, and I had some things I hadn't realized that were part of me. And those sounds turned to criticism. And they were actually, what happened was my fears were magnified through the sound that I unlocked through my environment. I was creating my environment with my thoughts, actions, what I was holding in my space, that fear that I didn't even know I had. And that was coming out in this new gift that I had unlocked of hearing everything, seeing the energy, hearing everything. And that created spiritual trauma. So I blocked it. I blocked my ability to hear everything. Then I became selective. I only wanted to hear certain things. I created new spiritual trauma through my spiritual awakening that potentially could have stopped my path. But see, I was willing to take a look at what it was that was creating this sense of immobility in my own progress in certain areas. And so then I worked with it and made friends with it and recognized that, I have control over about what I hear, what I allow in, and all that sort of thing. One of the reasons I'm really, 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 really always talking about crystals and how they can support us and holding our energy and keeping us pure to our own influential data. So anyway, that's long enough for this transmission on Kundalini. Thank you. Blessings.